Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly. And I am truly delighted to be joined again by Arnold, who is, of course, the President and Chief Executive of Carnival Corporation. So, Arnold, thank you so much for joining us again.
Lucy, always a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity for me to share my thoughts about the cruise industry. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, that's exactly what we want from you today. So let's just start. Obviously, last time we spoke, we were really in the thick of the pandemic. We are hopefully now emerging. Clearly, there's still challenges ahead, but let's just get an idea from you on the extent to which your combined fleet is back into service and how that restart has been going.
You know, as we said, we were going to do a phased restart because, of course, destinations opening at different times and so on. And so while we exited now almost 22 ships in total during the pause or since the pause has ended. So we have a leaner fleet, but we've also added a number of vessels. And when we're at full strength, when all the fleet is sailing, sometime next year we'll probably be at 10% plus overall capacity increase, despite the fact since 2019, despite the fact we exited those ships. But things are going really well. So as we said in our last business update, about 75% of the fleet at this time is now sailing, if not more. And in some areas where the itineraries are comparable, like in the Caribbean, our Carnival brand, all these Carnival ships are sailing.
Yeah.
Many are at full occupancy, 100% occupancy, et cetera. So you can feel the restart is there. But of course, there are still destinations that are just beginning to open or as yet have not opened. So we're excited about Alaska. We're excited about, the upcoming late summer, early fall, New England, Canada itinerary, since Canada is now opened. Alaska is renewing and is a very popular destination. Of course, we're excited about Australia opening up later this month in May here. And so we're excited about the first sailings in Australia in quite some time. And we're looking forward eventually to China and Japan and others returning to availability as a destination that existed prior to COVID.
Yeah. Just before we move on then, those 22 ships that you exited from the fleet obviously some of them you would have been exiting anyway, because as you had new tonnage arriving, but how much of that was then due to the pandemic that you decided to make yourselves leaner?
Well, once we had to pause sailing in the best interest of public health, well, it didn't make sense to keep ships that were less efficient, to carry them, to contain the resource, and when there was no opportunity for them to earn, against that. And then you'd have to put them in the dry dock later and invest even more capital. And so quite a few, it accelerated a plan. Those ships would have been gone in a number of years anyway, but it accelerated a plan to exit ships because of the burden on cash that those ships represented with not great prospects for returns down the road.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And then you just mentioned there that you think the whole fleet will be back sometime next year. So do you think first quarter?
Or maybe even the end of this year. It depends when all the destinations open. And of course, we're starting to, the assets are mobile. So we do move ships around. And even though some destinations may continue to be closed for a period of time, some of those ships may have, different itineraries than they would have had before. So, sometime this year, early next year, we expect to have all the fleet sailing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about that, what you're seeing in terms of demand and sort of the booking sort of profile at the moment. You said, obviously, in the Caribbean, you've got some of the Carnival ships staying at full occupancy. So you obviously are seeing demand coming back then. So give us an idea of what's booking and if there's been changes in those booking patterns. Are they booking sort of very late, like much shorter booking curve? What are you seeing?
Well, as we've shared all along, there's been robust demand for cruise. So if you look at bookings out in the 23 and beyond, the bookings are very strong. And as we've said in other business updates, they're either within the range, at the high end of the range, et cetera, of historical patterns for the longer term bookings. What happened this year, of course, with the uncertainties around some of the variants with COVID, also the geopolitical tensions in Ukraine and so on, the invasion of Ukraine, by Russia. Given those dynamics, Wave was unusual. Wave was definitely delayed. Now we've seen record booking days in Carnival and in Cunard in the UK. Highest bookings days ever in the history. P&O UK is booking very well now. It was slower than we would have liked to have seen during the early wave, during the wave period.
Yeah.
Now we see the bookings picking up. And so as the uncertainty around things kind of either people adapt to it or things become more certain, we see the strength in demand for cruise. And overall, the booking patterns are strong, and we have good pricing.
Okay. And yeah, on that pricing then, because obviously I've talked to quite a few cruise line executives recently because we've just had the Clear conference in the UK. And some of them were saying, look, we've got to hold our prices, and it's more important to hold prices than to fill ships. But other people are saying, oh my God, there's better prices this year than you've ever seen before. So book now because there's. So where are you? And is it different per brand? Like, where are you sort of pitching your pricing for this year particularly?
Well, the general philosophy certainly is to hold price. That we see, robust demand for an industry that's going to grow, but grow at a slower rate than we were growing previously, because a number of ships have exited, and it takes a while to get the whole infrastructure up and running again to get all the ships back in. So we do see slower growth in capacity. And again, with the demand that's out there, we think that's a great environment for good pricing. Still a much better value than you put in land-based vacation, but at the same time, capture a little bit more of the value that cruise actually generates in the eyes of the guests. So we would like to hold our price, and generally we are. We have so many different itineraries. We have 9 different brands. They're all over the world. Every situation is a little bit unique. So I'm sure someone can find an itinerary where, the price may be the best price they've ever seen, but I'm also sure they've seen itineraries where the price is, much higher than they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So on balance, our intent is to capture a little bit more of the value that we bring, but still be a much better value than you put in a land-based vacation.
Okay.
So still a great deal for the guests.
Yeah. And actually, I think in your last update, you talked about how actually the average booking value was going up anyway. Now, is that because your prices are slightly higher, or are you actually seeing consumer behavior slightly changing? Are you seeing people taking longer cruises, maybe traveling in a higher category stateroom? What are you seeing?
Well, one of the challenges now, you got to talk about actual cruises that are occurring versus bookings. Okay, so future bookings. Future bookings, we do have world cruises and stuff in the bookings in the future, and those are booking very well. In current sailings, we don't have world cruises. And so, some of those much longer itineraries aren't available because some destinations open, not, some have protocols that guests are willing to live with, some have protocols guests are not willing to live with.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to put together a world cruise at this point in time to sail right now. But as we look ahead in the future, we're going to be back to world cruises, which is what really gives you the longer, length of time in terms of more days that, traveling on by cruise. And so there is robust demand for that. There's no question about it out into the future. People are anxious to get back out and see the world and share the great experiences and the great experience that cruise is, Lucy.
Yeah. And you talk about what customers are prepared to accept in terms of the restrictions. Are you finding, certainly on board your ships now, I think there's no mask wearing for customers, but still the crew are wearing masks. Is that, are customers very accepting of that now as a sort of a norm? And do you see that sort of being phased out at some point soon?
Guests generally have been very cooperative in trying to support our primary objective: compliance, environmental protection, and health, safety, and well-being of everyone, keeping public health at the forefront. So guests, generally speaking, have been super cooperative. the protocols vary around the world.
Yeah.
Every destination has their own little twist. You need a test, you don't need one. You have to show vaccination, you don't have to show vaccination. You need to mask in these areas, you don't need to mask in these areas. It's optional, it's encouraged, or whatever. So
Yeah.
it varies all over the place. And so what we do holistically is make sure our crew, is vaccinated. Our crew have all, volunteered to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
To make sure they're vaccinated, and that, generally speaking, they will wear masks in public spaces and stuff, just as an extra measure.
And you see that continuing?
For a period of time, yes, but it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
We'll see how these variants go as this virus continues to mutate into what we hope, is a consistent trajectory of less problematic variants. In other words, you either have no symptoms or you have mild symptoms, but you're not being hospitalized or worse.
Yeah.
You're not having long-term effects from it and so on. As the virus continues on that trajectory, assuming it does, then of course you can get more relaxed in the protocols, because it's just not as big a threat to anyone. No one wants to be sick, but we're all willing to tolerate a cold or whatever if there's no serious harm to it. And so we'll see where it goes, and there's no guarantee, but generally speaking, that is the pattern of viruses. Viruses want to live, so they don't want to kill their host, because then they can't live. And so viruses tend over time to mutate into highly transmissible forms, but forms that are less threatening to the host.
Yeah. And as it becomes, sorry, Arnold, as it becomes less threatening, do you think that would mean that the CDC or the authorities would not shut down the cruise industry again? Are you confident we're not going to see that whole stop again that we had before?
What I would say is that we voluntarily stopped.
Yes.
And so keep in mind, public health is at the forefront of everything we do. This wasn't the first virus. We've had to deal with Ebola, SARS, MERS, Zika, I mean, a host of things.
Yeah.
And we've had to do it for decades. So if it becomes threatening, to human safety, whether they tell us to stop or not, we would stop.
You're right. Okay.
But
some of your peers have been very critical of the authorities, that I guess, about maybe then being allowed to open up again. Perhaps I take your point.
Yeah,
that you voluntarily
I think
stopped,
the authorities, I guess what disappoints us is our numbers will show, the industry numbers, and certainly our 9 Whirling Cruise Line brands, the numbers will show that we're much better than land, in terms of incidence rates and all that. And despite that, we have often been treated by regulatory bodies in a much more stringent way than other sectors in travel and leisure. We don't understand that. We don't feel it's based on science. We don't feel it's based on it. We think it's unfair. And mainly it's unfair to the hundreds of thousands and millions of people who depend on cruise for their livelihood. Not just our direct employees, but the travel agent professionals, the port workers, the drivers, the tour operators, the small restaurants, and in some cases, entire nation states, small islands, et cetera, that are really dependent for their livelihood. And we think it's terribly unfair to them that you would carve one industry out, which has data and has demonstrated performance, and hold it to a much more stringent standard and requirement than you do for other forms of travel.
Hotels or
hotels and resorts and so on.
Yeah.
And so that's what you hear a lot of the executives express consternation around.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's look ahead then. Let's look ahead to 2023. And just again, talking about your peers, Frank Del Rio said he thinks it's going to be a record year. So do you agree?
It certainly has a capability of being that, because again, assuming the destination is open and we can sail, all of the ships that are out there, there will be more capacity in 23 than there was in 19. there will be in generally better pricing in 23 than there was in 19. And that adds up to, record performance.
Okay.
And so I think that's within the reach of the industry. We'll have to see how things evolve. What we're planning to do is make certain, again, we honor our highest responsibility and top priority, which is clearly compliance, environmental protection, and the health, safety, and well-being of everyone. That's all of the guests, the people in the communities we touch and serve, and of course, our Carnival family, our shipboard and shoreside personnel. So, we're gonna absolutely honor that, and assuming the dynamics work out in the world, and it hopefully is continuing to trend that way with, multiple vaccines available and boosters, now therapies coming on the market. If you do get it, you can take, antivirals and so on to mitigate the symptoms and the impact of COVID, and all the various protocols that, we should be in a position to once again have people be able to travel and to be able to travel without fear.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Is there anything that you worry about coming down the line that could be a stumbling block? I mean, certainly in the UK, there's a lot of talk about a cost of living crisis. Obviously, the geopolitical events around the world are increasing fuel prices. So is there, do you think are there any notes of caution that you wanted to perhaps identify that we should look out for?
I think the history of the cruise industry, every year there's always, political tension somewhere. There's some place you used to be able to go that you can't. Every year there's natural disasters, typhoons, hurricanes, et cetera, every year. Every year there's some economic, regression or recession somewhere in the world and so on. So, all of those things can become bigger or smaller depending on how much of the planet is impacted directly by them. And that's always a threat out there for travel in general. But based on the last time when people would ask me, what keeps you awake at night? And I would give a certain answer. And all of a sudden that certain answer happened. I'm not going to do that again. So what I'm going to tell you now is the positive, and just say that I'm looking forward to people being able to travel wherever they want to travel, and not being afraid to travel because of geopolitical tensions or other things that would cause them to fear travel. And as long as they are able to travel and don't fear traveling, our business will be fantastic.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, definitely. You mentioned the burn on your cash. Let's just get the financial, question out the way, because obviously everyone's had to weather this storm. They've had to take on more debt. It's a big company like yours. How are you set financially for the future? In terms of travel agents booking your cruises, should they feel confident? When do you think you're going to be back to profitability, and all those questions?
Yeah, look, first of all, people should absolutely feel comfortable booking. Throughout this, none of our guests were ever compromised financially. And we have taken the steps to ensure we have adequate liquidity to weather a number of future possible storms. And so we have, good liquidity in the business. We're doing refinancings now. Unfortunately, the market, is not ideal from a borrower standpoint in terms of rates and whatnot. But, we have some debt that is coming due that's going to have to be refinanced, and we're getting in front of that. We just finished an offering this past week. So we'll continue to be in the financial markets, but we have certainly adequate liquidity, even if things went awry. Concerning things like fuel prices and all of that, historically, we've had other spikes in fuel prices in the past. We weathered those, and we can weather, spikes coming up here in the future. And, fuel prices come up and they go down. So that's just the historical pattern.
Yeah.
In terms of more specifics on the financials, as we've shared in the business updates, that we're looking forward to potentially being earnings positive, later this year. Not for the full year, but for the period. And then as we look into next year, we're expecting obviously to be earnings positive as we get the fleet up and going in full, and having more of the fleet being able to sail at full occupancy.
Yeah.
So that's where we are, but no one should be concerned about booking for fear that, their money will go into some dark hole that they will never get it back from.
Good. All right. Well, that's good to hear. But the markets, I mean, none of the cruise lines share prices are doing brilliantly at the moment. Why do you think there's, I mean, sorry to say, but, I was having a look at them and, why do you think there's not so much confidence in the cruise market? Because they were doing all right and they've dipped again.
It's not just cruise, the market overall is substantially down.
Yeah.
And that's just showing concern broadly about, global economic recession and ramifications of that. So the entire market is down. Cruise was down before, along with other, travel and leisure sector type companies, just because obviously we've been severely impacted by people not being able to travel, not allowed to travel, or by them having fear about traveling, either due to uncertainty. Just, why am I going to fly to a country where when I'm ready to come home, if I have COVID, I may not be able to get back into my own country, that kind of uncertainty and stuff. So that was the reason we were down before when others were up. And now we're along with the entire,
everybody. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. All right. So we'll hope everybody picks up at some point.
Yeah, right. Well, look, the stock market goes up, it comes down. I mean, the painful thing is if you have to liquidate right now, that's painful. But if not, then you
just ride it out. Ride it out.
You ride it out, and this isn't the first time the stock market's gone down. It won't be the last.
Okay. All right. Good to hear that you don't seem worried. So we like that. All right. Just a couple of questions around your future plans, because presumably during the pandemic you may have had to put some things on hold, such as, I guess, new build orders or refits or whatever you might have been doing. So to what extent did your plans get sort of slightly delayed, and when might we see you placing orders again or doing more of that kind of investment?
Our plans didn't get delayed, but in fact the yards had to shut down like a lot of businesses just because people were quarantined and they couldn't get workers in the yards. So a number of things got delayed. But, as you know, we've had a number of ships. We've had 6. We'll have 6 new ships, this year, and which is fantastic. And we're excited about each and every one of them. So including, Arvia for P&O brand, which is coming in December. And so we're very excited about that ship. But also in the rest of the world, we've had ships. Costa Toscana has already launched. We have a new Carnival ship coming soon, Carnival Celebration. We have our Seaborn venture ship coming. And so, we're very excited, about our new ships. And we're excited about our existing fleet that is now even more efficient because, as I said, we exited a number of less efficient vessels. So now we have ships that remain in the fleet that are, really, much more efficient than what the fleet was before. So some refits were delayed, mainly for the same reason. A few now, maybe because of just timing on availability of places to have the refits done and our timing of capital spending, but nothing that would compromise the integrity of the ship or the experience for the guests.
Okay.
So we're excited to be rolling again.
Yeah, but we have got you right. We've got lots to look forward to, and we're excited about Arvia. We're hoping you're going to give us some more sort of sneaky exclusives on Arvia before I let you go. But Jason Liberty at Royal Caribbean was saying that he hoped he could be looking at placing more orders either end of this year, early next year. Is that sort of your time frame as well, if you were looking to place any more?
Well, we already have ships coming in 23 and 24.
Yeah, well, yes.
So
it's a 5-year cycle, isn't it? You're going to have to, you need to, if you've got to get placing them again to keep them coming.
And we certainly will be looking at placing orders, but there's no question there will be a bit of a slowdown, in the 25-26 period as we, work through, the capital commitments that have been made and pay down the debt. Yeah. So for us, cash generation is important because we want to return to the credit rating levels we had pre-COVID. We think that's in the best interest of the shareholder. And as we accelerate repayment of debt, as the fleet that we have in sales, when we bring on the new ships we've already ordered, we see that as a way to get us back to the financial strength that we like to be in a financial position. That's going to be best for our shareholders. But we're going to be building ships. It's just that I'd say the 25-26 period, you may see fewer new builds than what it would have seen had this not occurred.
Yeah, there's going to be a little break, isn't there? Okay, we understand that. You mentioned about your fleet now being more efficient. Of course, it sort of leads us on nicely to the whole question around sustainability and making sure that you are more energy efficient as much as anything else. So it's a big commitment for you across 9 brands, isn't it? But and I know everyone's going for this, carbon neutral by 2050. But where are you on that path?
Oh no, we absolutely are committed to trying to get to net zero emissions by 2050. We also have a goal by 2030 to have reduced our carbon intensity, by 40%. Since 2008, we're approximating 30% or more decrease in carbon intensity. In fact, Lucy, we peaked in absolute carbon emissions in 2011. Okay. And since that time, we've increased our capacity 45%. And we emit less carbon today in absolute amounts, not just in intensity, but total emissions. Okay. Less today than we did in 2011. So amazing. And so we have a total focus on it. There'll be 6 ships powered by LNG at the end of this year. All 6 cruise ships, all 6 are ours. Others are coming as well from the rest of the industry.
Yeah, you've really committed.
It's not the answer. It's not the answer, but it reduces emissions by 20%.
Yeah, so, sorry, I was going to say that you really have gone down the LNG route, but you've got other executives who go, that's not the answer. We're going to wait and see if there's a better solution. But are you saying that at least it's better than the current fuel?
The goal is continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So 20% reduction is a big step in the right direction. Absolute carbon emission being lower today with 45% capacity increase than it was in 2011 is great progress. And we're continuing to invest. We just joined, a consortium of shipping entities that are investing in new technologies. Everything from lithium ion batteries to fuel cells to bio fuels, et cetera, to come up with ways to further reduce emissions. And a large portion of our global fleet is already able to plug in and port.
Okay. So if only there were ports that had the facilities.
Yeah, there's about 21 today. Yeah. Of that, about half their power is actually coming from more friendly sources, such as wind and solar and hydro and so on, and some cases nuclear, which again is still good from an emission standpoint.
Yeah.
And the rest are coming from fossil fuel, but hopefully the power generation is more efficient than it would be if we were generating it ourselves. And so we can plug in and port and be either significantly emission reduced or emission free, during that period of time.
You're pursuing various strategies as the technologies are being developed.
Absolutely. And everyone is, and everyone should. In the end, we will get there. No one knows exactly how. Technologies today are not ready-made to do it, but the technologies continue to evolve and improve. And the most important thing is we're making meaningful, significant progress, each year. Now, the other thing I know that scientists tell me if the cruise industry didn't exist, you couldn't measure the difference in emissions on the planet. That's how small we are. Right. On the other hand, there are a number of industries that can say that. And when you add them all together, they do have an impact. So we still see ourselves as having an impact, and it's a huge priority for us because it's a priority for the planet.
Yeah, so it's the right thing to do for the planet. It's definitely the right thing to do. I know your shareholders will be demanding it, but are you seeing demand from your customers yet? Is there a movement that
I don't see a demand. I don't see a demand from shareholders, nor do I see a demand from customers. I think that will come in time.
Yeah.
But I don't see that now. I don't
moment.
see people making, enough people making the decisions based on, relative efficiency or zero emissions. You don't see that happening today. It will happen in time, but that's not even the point. The point is the climate change threat is real.
Yeah.
And we need to do everything we can. And as you know, what we do today impacts, you won't realize the impact till 70, 80, 100 years from now.
Yeah.
The weather we're experiencing today is not from current emissions. It's from things that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago. So to keep the planet from going up the scale of accelerating, temperature increase and affecting major climate change, we've got to take action now. And luckily, the world understands that, and we're doing it. So whether or not you get an immediate response from guests or you get an immediate response from shareholders isn't even the point. We have to do it, and we're all committed to it.
Yeah.
And we're doing it together. And eventually it will. I think people will be making decisions. But today, to say they are, we have not experienced that. We can't measure.
Okay. All right. I'm conscious of your time, Arnold, but I want to talk about travel advisors, because
Yes.
obviously they've been through this with you. They've been, it's been a tough period as well. It would be easy just to say how important are travel agents, and you would say, oh, they're really important. But have they become more important? Have you seen customers wanting more expertise, reassurance? I know the direct business came back quicker, but do you see a real future for agents, particularly given what we've been through?
I absolutely see a real future for agents. There's no question about that. To say they're more important, I would say they've always been very important. We have 9 world-leading cruise line brands. They're very different from each other, and they're very different from the other brands of other companies. And so getting the person on the right cruise experience for them at that particular point in time, what that individual and their family and fellow travelers are looking for, is really important. It's what builds loyalty. It's what builds real investment in the concept of cruising by guests. If they have a great experience, they will tell everybody about it. And that is the most powerful marketing tool there is. If they have an okay experience, and I'm not going to talk about it much, if they have a bad experience, well, obviously that's really bad. And so you have to get them on the right experience that's going to fit what they're looking for at the time. And there's nobody better to do that than a trained travel agent professional who understands the different brands. Is a huge contribution to the sustainability of the business and to us capturing value over time for the experiences that we provide to guests. So they're critically important. And right now you have the added layer of just uncertainty and understanding. What is the testing protocol? What happens if I do come back? I mean, and again, a travel agent professional on top of their game, they're going to know, because this stuff's constantly changing. They're going to be up to speed. They're going to be informing their client. Here's what you need. Here's what it's going to take. All the cruise lines are trying to do that as well. But having the right travel agent professional gives great comfort and makes travel frictionless for the client. And that's why they're so important. So absolutely, there's a future. Absolutely, they're critically important. To say more important, they're certainly no less important than ever. And they've always been critical in my book.
Do you think you'll have to change the way you work with travel professionals? I mean, obviously they've had to adapt and work in different environments and much more flexible and hybrid working. And do you think you'll see a different way of working with the distribution channel?
Again, we have to try to make it frictionless for the distribution channel to work with us, and vice versa. And so I see, technology playing a big part of that, obviously, as we get better. We all went through the brutal thing of having unbelievable number of service calls. People just have questions, and people that have booked 2 years out are calling and asking about, well, I heard there was a change in the protocols. What does that mean for me? And those calls have to be handled. Travel agents have to talk to their clients. And so technology that, is going to facilitate, that type, and also technology is going to help communicate more effectively what the experience really is to help people get on the right cruise for them. But we do the minor things that are very important to the individual travel agent professional. We have the P&O, Shine program and the training that goes with all that the travel agents seem to really appreciate, and we certainly feel is making an impact and strengthening our relationship with them and having it work more seamless, and that they get rewarded properly for it. And so,
Yeah.
We'll constantly be adjusting those things, taking feedback from the travel agent community, and then making certain we incorporate that to make it, again, frictionless for them, rewarding for them, providing them the education, the tools, and the training so they can inform their clients on really what a great experience cruise is and the specific cruise experience for them at that point in time.
Yeah, okay, that's great to hear. We keep mentioning 9 brands, Arnold, but there was a
Yes.
report in Cruise Industry News this morning that you were eyeing selling Seaborn to a Saudi Arabian business. I wondered if you wanted to comment on that report.
Lucy, our policy is we never comment on rumor and speculation and all that. If we ever do anything, we always communicate it, to the world, and otherwise we just don't comment on the conversational stuff you hear out there. So
okay, and so that, I guess that's, again, I'm going to get the same answer then, because I was going to ask you about the Crystal Cruises fleet, because of course, very sad demise of Crystal during the pandemic, but there's a few ships there that I know some people are interested in. Is that a target for the Carnival Corporation at all?
Again, we wouldn't comment on any rumor or anything, but at this point in time, we have expressed nothing about acquiring any of the Crystal assets. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's all right. Listen, very short time, but Arnold, when we arranged this interview, I didn't know that you were going to be stepping down and handing over the reins to Josh, who we know a little bit because he was running the Carnival UK for a while. So I hope this isn't the last time we get to speak, but I do want to ask about him. You've obviously appointed him into this role. What's he going to bring to the position of CEO and president? What are his qualities that you're looking forward to him showing?
Well, real quickly, Josh's background, he started off as a lawyer. He became eventually treasurer for the company. And I sent him over to the UK to run our UK operations, Cunard, P&O, and associated maritime operations. He did that really well. I brought him back to the US as chief operations officer, where he helped work through managing the protocols and helping influence the CDC and other governments around the world to make sure that we were able to get cruise up and running again, as well as have him assist with a number of back of the house operations, including managing the fleet. Admiral Burke reports into him. So he has great experience, but Josh he has great energy. He's very smart, but he also shares, the values that Carnival stands for. And that Mickey Arison and his dad Ted and all that really instilled from the very beginning. He's very up to date on the important aspects of sustainability. He's a good leader. He's well respected by everyone. He gets along well with everyone. He's easy to work with, and he's at the same time has vision and he has the discipline and the intestinal fortitude to do tough things. He has to. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the company and therefore for our shareholders. And I'm also excited for myself because I'm looking forward to me becoming vice chair. And the timing is right. We're getting a little up in age, myself and my chairman. And so it's important to have that next generation in place with their sea legs under them and having had some experience running to ensure that the shareholders have a smooth transition, as we move forward, because we have a long and bright future as an industry and a long and bright future as a company. And we want to make sure our shareholders get to enjoy that. And to do that, a move like this, I think, is timely and important.
Oh, well, listen, I know you're not leaving completely. You're still going to be around, but I think you probably
Nobody
deserve...
leaves.
No one leaves. No,
Nobody.
Exactly. But you probably deserve a bit of downtime after the last couple of years that you've been leading the company through this. So listen, as I say, I hope it's not the last time we get to speak. I'm looking forward to speaking to Josh though in his new role when he's got his feet under the table. We'll have a chat to him. Well, we're very
Yeah.
grateful for your time, Arnold. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Lucy. Really appreciate it. Hope we'll see you on a P&O or Cunard or any other brand ship soon. Okay?
Just try and stop me.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Lucy.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Take care.